It's the weekend once again. Welcome back to the show. This is Tony.
And I'm Tim.
Thank you for joining us once again to talk about the football that has been happening, especially in the midweek. We saw the Champions League returning very, very big results in there, Timothy, with Manchester City, of course, beating Red Star Belgrade, having come from behind. We saw Arsenal, of course, also appearing for the first time in almost 7 years, but beating PSV 4-0. But the pick of the bunch, perhaps, is Newcastle, making their first appearance in over 20 years. They came in here and got a draw away from home at AC Milan. What do you think about the results?
I think they would have taken that result all day long because they did defend for themselves first time in the Champions League in over 20 years. Going to the San Siro, I think coming out with a point is a huge
It's a decent start.
Yeah, and I think Eddie Howe can build on that. And they look likely now that with that confidence, they can go ahead and try and make it out of that group.
And Arsenal 7 years?
Arsenal 7 years looked like they'd never been away. The fan base looked exciting, and the players, I think, returned the favor, and a 4-0 win was amazing for Arsenal.
Very, very big news, of course, there. And Manchester City, of course, having fallen behind early in that game against Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda, like it's called back home, having, of course, got the 3 goals that were required to finally get that win. And they kick off the weekend this weekend, of course, 5 p.m. on Saturday. Manchester City will be hosting Nottingham Forest, a team that hasn't started badly in this season. If you look at the results that they've been able to get, they drew in that last fixture against Burnley. Perhaps you could have thought maybe it was a game that they could have got something from. Burnley picking up the first point of the season, but there are some other promising results. They beat Chelsea before that. So this is the Nottingham Forest that's visiting Manchester City. Of course, we know that they have some weapons in their side, but they visit a Manchester City team that has picked 15 points from 15 already. Last week we were asking if it will be 15 out of 15. This might be 18 out of 18, Tim.
I think we are going for 18 out of 18. They've really done a good job, this Man City side. But you've mentioned it also, the other team, Nottingham Forest, have been decent. You can say maybe they've been preparing for this game. They've played Arsenal, they've played Man United, they've played Chelsea.
Had some big games.
Yes, and beaten Chelsea. So coming to this Man City game, they will. It's like a free hit for them. Whatever happens, they will give it a shot. And they've been decent. They have 2 wins and a draw. That's 7 points. That is above average. The likes of Man United are struggling to get even 7.
It's really certainly very, very interesting. But they come, of course, against the Manchester City side with a lot of weapons in their side. We know, of course, after the Champions League game that Bernardo Silva has picked up a knock and he might not be available for selection in this one. But Jack Grealish, a player who has missed 2 of their last fixtures in all competitions, now is back for selection. Pep, in his earlier press conference, was highlighting his importance to the side. He will be back for selection in this one. We've seen Haaland picking up a bit of form in the last few games. Of course, Julian Alvarez, his striking partner, got 2 in midweek. Is another very, very big player that Manchester City will be looking to. If you look around this Manchester City side team, all the positions seem to be okay for now, especially, of course, with the options that they have in Foden and with Doku as well up front. They seem to be a complete side. How do you think Steve Cooper approaches such a game?
Well, you don't want to be negative if you're Steve Cooper, and I don't think he's been a negative coach. He always wants to attack the opponent. Yeah, he will try to manage, which looks defensive, but he will always have a go for these games. But you've mentioned the City players there, and I'm trying to identify who is the brightest light out of the shining City stars. I think it is
Julian. It has to be Alvarez.
Alvarez stepped up when Kevin De Bruyne picked that knock. You couldn't tell who was going to draft him for.
And it was curious to see him playing in the number 10 position.
Yeah, but he has done a brilliant job, and I don't think he will go on the bench anytime soon. So they have to be Nottingham Forest wary of Julian Alvarez, and if you commit your bodies on Alvarez, then you open up the space for the likes of Haaland, Doku, or even Foden, whoever starts there. So it's going to be a hard game for Nottingham Forest. I think, for me, Steve Cooper has to look at that game in terms of milestones, maybe phases. You look at the first 20 minutes. Can you maintain that goalless? Then you look at seeing out the first half. Then maybe you try and look at something in the last 10 minutes. Otherwise, if you come fully open, then you'll get punished 4 or 5.
It might not be so easy. The last time out, this game last season, it was a 6-0 victory in which Haaland got a hat-trick. So this is the kind of a game perhaps the coach might be looking at last season's mistakes and trying to iron some of those out. Callum Hudson-Odoi came into this team and got his first goal on his debut against Burnley last Monday night. So it will be very interesting to see how Cooper approaches this fixture, definitely. Taiwo Awoniyi has been in the form of his life in the first 5 games of the season. So he had the assist as well, and he has a couple of goals before that. So they'll be looking to perhaps sit back a little bit and then try and hit City on the counter. It's not the kind of team that you can hit off the counter because of the way they approach their defense there when their players move forward.
Yeah, City guys are always alert. You don't hear City being scored an early goal in the first minute. You don't hear of that. Neither do you hear them being countered from a corner kick, the way Man U got considered against Nottingham. So I look at Nottingham Forest and I'm struggling to see which positive, even with the new signings, I don't think they're going to adhere and get something there.
Prediction?
I've gone for a huge one, Tony. I've gone for 5-0 Man City.
I've gone for 4-1 in that particular fixture. I think maybe because of the form of the forwards, Elanga has been playing really well. Awoniyi as well, and Hudson-Odoi, maybe they can conjure up 1 goal, but I've gone for 4-goal scoreline for Manchester City. We'll be coming back after the break with a late one on Saturday night. Don't go anywhere.